And it also speaks about alienation. I hope this song would have gone away, but it seems to just be coming back and coming back again. It's a song I call 1990. So from the ghettos of Trinidad to the ghettos of LA, same story. Nuclear warhead, do I see it torn down? And there's an army in retreat. I see the old colonials of Europe now become united. And that word, perestroika, it fills the streets. I see the eagle sitting on the shoulder of the bear. Or maybe it's the other way around. Is this the calm before the hellfire? Or is our tomorrow really heaven bound? But 1990, the blood still flows in Bogota, and from Beirut to Johannesburg, the river don't stop. 1990, third world children still wander in their boats, in their jungles, in their deserts, until they dry. It is strange. The more we change, the more we rearrange. Everything just seems the same as we move into the next century. 1990, please make a liar of me. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, 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 yeah, yeah. There is a black man on the run through a lonely Beijing street. There he goes. My God, he's running again. This time through Brooklyn, Howard Beach. And there he runs again through the streets of Soweto and Bensonhurst. And I'm saying, Lord, so the story goes. And the ghostly man from the past, they call him Selma, Alabama. He just shrugs and says, deja vu, I suppose. 1990. Will our children stand firm, or will they keep running and running and running till the end of time? 1990. Will hands of love ever reach out, or will they be there just to strengthen the crime? It is strange. The more we change, the more we rearrange. Everything just seems the same as we move into the next century. 1990, please make a liar of me. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, oh, oh. LA's burning down. It reminds me of Harlem and what's in the 60s. Same problem, same country, and King is still the name. People shouting power, power to we the people, and equal rights and justice is still the game. I remember over 25 years ago, America stood up and said, this won't happen no more. Now you tell me, what have we become? Will the beast always defeat the beauty? Is this land just another house of the rising sun? 1990, will we see a tomorrow where our children will truly be free? 1990, is it joy, is it sorrow, as we move into the 21st century? I'm saying it is strange. The more we change, the more we rearrange, everything stays the same as we move into the next century. 1990, make a believer of me.
Oh, well, good evening and welcome to this evening's edition of Politics 101. Busy Friday. I want to welcome all of you. I see my brother, Aubrey Paul, the man at Swank from Buxton, Middlewalk. And, good friend of mine, my classmate. I was in the neighborhood in Buxton a couple of weeks ago there and trying to figure out the neighborhood, with all these big houses that's going up now, all the little lots, they're gone, and Aubrey and the Paul clan, and I used to be part of that family. To hang out there in Milwaukee, trying to figure out where Miss Sarah used to live, and so on and so forth. Oh boy, those are days gone by. The power of the village, the village is a particular organism. It's a particular organism. People ask you to this day how you know the entire village. Because when you live in a village, you know the whole village. All the little lots, who live here, who live there, who used to live here, who used to live there, and so on. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to you, Terence Beaton. I see Sister Linda, Cookie, boxing back down side. I see Sister Lynette, them twin girls, my sisters, them. Friendship in the walk. Good evening to all of you, Sandra Goodluck Semple. Good evening, Kirk. Good evening to you, Donna Joseph. Good evening to you, Abidea Monroe. Good evening. Good evening to all of you. Saturday being a very busy Friday. Sorry, I don't know why I'm thinking Saturday. My brother Vibert White, the man from Grove on the East Bank, welcome to this evening's Politics 101. Sister Danette Booker Company, Boxing Baghdad and Side Market. The Bookers are a fixture in Buxton. And want to welcome all of you down. Quite a day today, busy day. One of the students at the university there that I'm teaching at is doing his dissertation on obeah, comparing obeah with witchcraft in England. It's so amazing. People are doing now, they doctorate things that we take for granted in our Caribbean. So we had that dissertation committee today and to look at where student is with his work. They're doing their doctorate now and things that we take for granted, Obeah, he's looking at obeah in the British Caribbean and look at the laws and all that stuff now they're doing. All the stuff they're doing. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. I notice President Ali, Irfan Ali, you all get vexed with me for calling me president. Irfan Ali is in the United States trying to make the rounds before the Guyana conference has been organized by Rickford Burke. He's there making the rounds. They say that we are not making a difference. We are making a difference. He didn't plan to go, There was no plan to go up to America, but Rickford Burke organized his conference and he decided he got to go up and respond to Rickford Board Conference. That's what you make them. Part of politics and part of what is power is the ability to make people do things that they would not normally do. So he's up there, before he left, we're making progress. David Rudder, 1990, Please Make a Liar of Me. It's a classic, David Michael Rudder. And let's take another minute of David Rudder. Another minute. Take it in. Take it in.
And it also speaks about alienation. I hope this song would have gone away, but it seems to just be coming back and coming back again. It's a song I call 1990. So from the ghettos of Trinidad to the ghettos of LA, the same story. Nuclear warhead, do I see it torn down? And there's an army in retreat. I see the old colonials of Europe now become united. And that word, perestroika, it fills the streets. I see the eagle sitting on the shoulder of the bear. Or maybe it's the other way around. Is this the calm before the hellfire? Or is our tomorrow really heaven bound? But 1990, the blood still flows in Bogota. And from Beirut to Johannesburg, the river don't stop. 1990, third world children still wander in their boats, in their jungles, in their deserts, until they dry. It is strange. The more we change, the more we rearrange. Everything just seems the same as we move into the next century. 1990, please make a liar.
1990, please make a liar. Please make a liar of me. David Rudder, David Michael Rudder there. 1990. We're expecting Dr. Vincent Adams to come by. I think he's backstage trying to get in. Dr. Vincent Adams is expected to be here for us to talk about some of the lies from the PPP. And Dr. Vincent Adams was the head of the EPA, under the coalition government, and he has been carrying the fight to the PPP on oil and gas. Well, you know, the 14 oil blocks, the auction went off, and they have 8 bids. They were expecting more than that. We're going to talk about what that means for the oil and gas industry. We're going to ask Dr. Vincent Adams a little bit about that. They were expecting more bids. I wonder what happened. The economist, Professor Clive Thomas, is going to be here, I think, on Monday to talk us through that. We noticed the IMF and the World Bank, they're talking about adjusting the exchange rate of the Guyana dollar. That's something that is being there and thereabout. We're going to talk to the economists about that and to see what that means for us going forward. Welcome to all of you. Welcome to Politics 101. This evening we have Dr. Vincent Adams is going to join us. Dr. Adams is going to join us this evening, and we are going to we're going to have our discussion on what's happening on the oil and gas front. Welcome to all of you. And I notice Lester, Ingrid, Marcus Skinner. Welcome to Politics 101 on a Friday evening. Welcome to Politics 101 on a Friday evening. We're waiting on Dr. Vincent Adams to join us. We're waiting on Dr. Vincent Adams to join us. Yeah, Dr. Adams, we're waiting on you. No. I think you should log out and try coming in again. There's something is blocking you. Try it one more time and see what happens. Yeah. Yes, Dr. Adams seems to be getting some problems there in getting in. But we're going to sort it out. We're going to sort it out, and we're going to sort him out, and we're going to sort it out and try to get him in as quickly as possible because he has a lot to tell us. He has a lot to tell us this evening, so we're going to get him sorted out. We're gonna get him sorted out. We're gonna get him sorted out. I think we are going to get him sorted out now. Gonna get him sorted out now. And see here, we are going to get him sorted out. Yes. Oh, all right. I sent you a new link there, Dr. Adams. I'm going to your email and I sent you a new link. Try that one. That should bring you straight in. Yes. The technical things sometimes get in the way. But yeah, Ali's up there in New York trying to do damage control, but the damage has already been done. They've taken the country to the brink. The United States have them to come to power, and now they feel they're in power. They have no need to engage the United States anymore. And the United States is saying to them that, you need to come together with the opposition and get the country moving. And they're not budging. They're chatting back to the Americans. They're chatting back to the Americans. They feel that they've been put in power, and that's what happens. They've been put in power and they feel they can say anything now and do anything. The Americans are telling them, look, you need to work with the other people. They represent half of the population, but they think that they are big for their boots and so on. But that's what happened. That's what happens when you do regime change. The beneficiaries of regime change tend to get comfortable. They feel they can think they're turning now on their own. So they eventually had the auction, 8 bids. We don't know what all of that means, but Dr. Adams is here with us. So let's bring him in. Dr. Adams, sorry about the technical glitch. Here you are. Good evening and welcome again to Politics 101.
Good evening, Dr. Hinds. It's always a pleasure to be with you and your wonderful audience. Here, imagine, I'm supposed to be the technical guy who understands technology, but it's not it's not working out that way.
Yes. Tell you what, Dr. Adams, we have had a problem in the Caribbean in the sense that we often do not appreciate what comes out of our own system, our own process, our own people. I remember in the old days when you and I were youngsters, our novelists and poets had to go up to England to get recognition and
Yep.
so forth. And somebody like yourself, you've been working tirelessly on this question of oil and gas, on this question of environmental control, and trying to locate our industry within the context of best practices. And sometimes we take it for granted. Just for the purposes of our audience, give us a sense of not your certification and so on. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, you're Dr. Vincent Adams, that you've done the work, and I know that your doctorate is not wasn't bought anywhere. It's not an honorary doctorate, it's all of that kind of stuff. Not that honorary doctorates are bad, but you got people who got honorary doctorates using it as though they work for it, And that's the problem. It's not the honorary doctorate, it's the problem, is the way in which people who have been given that doctorate, they then use it as everything. Talk to us about your experience you're an engineer, and talk to us about your vast experience in oil and gas, so that we get a sense that when you engage the Guyana situation, you're not engaging it as a rookie, right? Talk to us about your experience that you've accumulated over the years that makes you, that puts you in a position to deal with the Guyana oil and gas industry.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity there, Dr. Hines. I always like to preface that with a perspective. And I listen to your programs all the time, and the one program that really almost brought me to tears was that program on poverty. I'm sure you remember that.
Yeah.
And it was just as if you were telling my story. And that's what drove me to who I've become. I grew up in a place called Christianborg. It's on the west bank of Linden, where the only thing of value that people thought we had, and you spoke about the ghettos. I mean, imagine in Linden, that was the ghetto of Linden. The folks from the Mackenzie side never even want to come across the river for the myth that they're going to be beaten up and robbed. And the only thing we had was the cemetery. So I came from that perspective. And then in my latter years to go to school, in Georgetown and UG, I lived in Alwyston. So that has been my formative life. And I have never moved from that. So that's what was within me. We worked hard, we worked with honesty, and we came out there. And your words were, you may come out of the ghettos, but you come out with dignity and honesty and understand what you've left behind. And you never forget where you came from. And that is why even when I came up here and I achieved, I was one of the first graduates of the University of Guyana, the first School of Engineering graduates that came out from the University of Guyana to start the Guyana Water Authority. There were 12 of us who started the Guyana Water Authority. So I got into, and I was the well drilling engineer. So I personally, and well, not personally, but my task, I was the drilling engineer who drilled all the wells from the Demerara River to the rest of the eastern part of the country. So all the wells that on the East Coast, the old wells, that even Georgetown wells, the South Prime well, the UG well, the Victoria well, the Region 5 well. I drilled, I'm sure that there are more wells, and I'm hopefully that my wells are still working. But anyway, so I got into that subsurface, into drilling wells, except that it was a smaller scale, which is groundwater. So I got interested in petroleum. Naturally, you go to the next stage of petroleum. And then at the same time, there was a petroleum boom. So when I left Guyana and came up to the US, I went to one of the top four schools in petroleum engineering to well, I did a geological engineering course in groundwater hydrology, which again is the advancing in my groundwater and drilling wells. But then I decided to do my PhD in petroleum engineering at one of the top 4 schools in the United States of America. And it so happened that my wife got pregnant with a 3rd kid. I finished all my coursework, so I got basically, and what you, as you know, an ABD.
Yes. Yes. All but dissertation.
That's right. That's right. And the company were paying a lot of money in the United States. I said, hey, why do I need to stay in school? And so what the university did, they gave me like 6 years to come back and finish because again it was all ABD. Mm-hmm. So I went and I worked for the American Oil Company, which is now Amoco, which is now BP, British Petroleum. So I worked there as a senior petroleum engineer, and I was the what is called the reservoir expert in all of West Texas, which West Texas now happens to be the other field that Exxon has focused on. Exxon has 2 big fields now, Guyana and the West Texas field where I was. Now, one of the working this, I was a reservoir engineer, a senior reservoir engineer, meaning I was responsible for all the reservoir stuff. And in doing that, as a matter of fact, I was one of the pioneers in developing new technologies for enhancing more oil recovery. You know, we talk about recoverable reserves. I'm sure you hear that term.
Yes.
Well, that is based upon technology. Today, it might be 6 billion barrels, and the technology would only allow you to remove 6 billion barrels. However, advanced technology, which is what we call enhanced technology, which is what I was part of. We use carbon dioxide flushing, etc. That can go up to, it may even double in terms of recoverable reserve. And there, I understand that the technology that I was part of developing now is used internationally, even in Trinidad, they're using it. So what happened when the oil industry went bust in the late 80s? It so happened that I was in Texas, and the Department of Energy was looking for somebody like me. This is the federal government. And the U.S. Department of Energy, and the U.S. Department of Energy responds for all energy within the nation. But a lot of people don't realize, even politicians, I hear them sometimes saying that they're going to shut down the Department of Energy, not realizing that the Department of Energy is also responsible for the nuclear weapons complex of the nation. It's also responsible for all of the science development in the nation. The Department of Energy, we at the time, we owned all of the big national laboratories, Oak Ridge National Lab, and even in the one in your neck of the woods there, Los Alamos in your neck,
yes,
Los Alamos,
yes. Uh-huh.
And those are Department of Energy. And all of the weapons complex, the nuclear weapons, we own them. And we would manufacture nuclear weapons, and we hand it over to the military when they want to use it. But the military they're not discharged. We are. So I was responsible. So in addition, all types of energy, oil, gas, of course, and then nuclear energy, geothermal energy. So that's what the Department of Energy did. And of course, a big part of it was also environmental. When, of course, I ended up doing I didn't go back to get my PhD in petroleum, but what I did, I ended up went to another one of the best schools in environmental engineering here in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, at the University of Tennessee. So that's where I did my PhD. So I've got a unique background that I've not met anybody that was so ideal for the petroleum industry, with a mixture with specialty in both petroleum engineering and environmental engineering, because the two are closely integrated. So that's where my expertise comes in from both sides. You may find a petroleum engineer or an environment, but that's where I was ideal. And when I retired from here, and by the way, I also was responsible for running some major parts of the weapons complex, the nuclear weapons complex, and for running some of the science, developing some of the science for the Department of Energy. So I had that broad perspective. So it wasn't narrow. It was, especially when it came to leadership and management. We didn't look at each other as a manager. It was all about leadership. And it so happened that I started as an engineer, and I elevated myself to the highest level of the civilian government in the United States of America. And the position was it's called a senior executive service position. It's a core, and the core forms about 0.3% of the 3 million employees in the federal government. So we're the leaders. Like when a president comes into office, the president would appoint cabinets and secretaries and those type. Well, they come and they go with the politics. We are the career professionals that stay on, and we run the day-to-day operation. So that's what I did. I ran the day-to-day operations, like I said. I worked in private industry for Aramco and British Petroleum. And then, of course, I ended my career with the United States Department of Energy, where I was there for 31 years. I even headed international organizations. My peers, I was well respected among my peers. I headed the entire United States Southern Section. I was the chairperson for the largest international environmental organization, Association of Professionals. I represented the United States on the International Atomic Energy Agency, that is this stage that is located in Vienna, Austria, and I was even selected to lead the United States delegation to some major international conferences, engineering conferences, and I was chairperson of 2 of those conferences, one in Kazakhstan and one in Germany, and that attracted like 60 something countries. So it was this broad, and it's not only technical, but the leadership part of it, broad technical background. So here is a kid who came from a poor background in Christiansborg and Albaiston, and I was able to make it. So I was always dedicated, even when I was with the U.S. Department of Energy. For almost 2 decades, I headed the Linden Fund USA, which was one of the major hometown associations. So I was in Guyana 3-4 times every single year, bringing down medical missions, education workshops, etc. And it was all voluntary. I was working even with the past government, So I was always dedicated to making sure that the folks who came from where I came from should be able to achieve. And it's about opportunity, Dr. And you talk about that all the time. It's not where you come from, and that is what disturbs me more than anything else. When I see a government just disregarding, you tearing down poor people's homes. How more heartless could you get? Putting them out in the street. And then even the vice president in his press conference, I almost fell out of my chair, Dr. Hine, just a couple of weeks ago, when he was questioned about these projects that they're spending money on. What was his response? I don't know if you picked that up. He said that all the opposition could talk about is to feed the people. And I thought I thought I didn't hear right. And then he said it again, which means that here we have a leader that is saying that he's against feeding the people. And of course, he has shown that he's against housing the people. When you go into these poor neighborhoods, you rip their little whatever they have. I don't know even if you call it's a house to them, which is a sad state of affairs in a country like Guyana that is supposed to be the richest country on this planet. You don't want to feed them, nor you don't want to house them. However, the 10%, the top 10%, they're getting the hog of this all money and all the whatever money it is, while over 50% or even more, because 50% of the people live on less than $5 a day. I don't know how they do it, Dr. Hyde. So that is where my heart lies, and I will never stop. I've made that commitment. I will never stop doing what I do, because it's because of that village that where I came from. I used to be beaten. I remember one time, Dr. Hines, that, and I go around North America and even England, They honor me. Sometimes I give speeches, and I always tell them about a teacher by the name of Hector Pirates. I'm sure that you probably know his brothers, the Pirates.
Yes. Michael
And
and Michael and
that's
yes.
right. And Hector, never forget, was in primary school taking you had these scholarship classes. They put a few of the bright kids to take scholarships and stuff like that. And I remember in the parallel class in the scholarship class was an extra lessons thing, but you did. And in the regular class, I brought third place. And I'm walking up to get my prize. And you know what he did? He said, bend over. And he gave me a benching for bringing third place in class.
There you go.
And but when you look back, that village that raised you, I came out today. I was the first person from Linden, one of only two people from Linden to represent the country at cricket. I played in the national cricket team, and it was because of two young teachers that I had. They played I played cricket with them every day. But guess what? At nights, I have got to go study with them, or else I can't play the next day.
There you go.
So my mother could not read or write, Dr. Hines, and so those are the kinds of things that motivated me. But it's because of that village that raised me, and coming from that background, and that's what molded me. So everything that I accomplished, it's not about me. It's about what that did to me is to tell me, here, you know what, this. You did not just be given some special gift or anything else. It was because of that village that raised you. So that is why I do what I do, Dr. Hines. And so when I came back to Guyana, it was to provide my service, to continue providing my service, by the way, because I was doing it voluntary. And then I was asked to set up to really turn the EP around and to advise on the petroleum industry. So that's where I came from. So I know it's a very broad thing. It's not only about my technical background, but it's what has driven me, what has been motivating me, which is even more important than my technical background.
And I'm very glad that you took us to places, and that some of the audience here, people from Christianborg, Linden, who know Mr. Paris. A few years ago, I thought I missed him, and I asked one of his brothers, Malcolm. He said Hector passed away, and
Yeah.
I hadn't heard. I knew when I was a youngster I would go up to Linden with brother UC and thing, and he would always go by to see Hector and so on, and I got to know him in that way. And then his brother told me a few years about this. But you've taken us to places, and the reason I wanted you to talk about that, because I know Mr. Jack Dio came from the same place that you and I come from, and the majority. He comes from the bowels of poverty, and he knows that. What is the defining and differentiating factor is power, and how we deal with power, because we all come from the nigger yard of yesterday, leaping from the oppressor's hate, as Martin Carter says. All of us come from there, and some of us say all we talk about is feeding people. And it means somewhere along the way, at the ideological level, you lost touch with where you come, and it has to do with power. Here was a young man at 35 years old, entrusted with leading a nation, and we made a mistake. It is obvious we made a mistake, and that's why when I hear young people talk about wanting to get into the process, and I'm all for young people. I became a political activist at 14. And so I am pro young people. We gave power to a young man. He was 35 years old. And look what he has done. Look at the legacy that he has left. And so I wanted you to talk your story. And one part of the story that you didn't say, and I'm going to stitch it in here. I have a friend here in Arizona. He's Indian Guyanese. He's a Munsami from Quarantine, Kildonan. And he saw you on my program a couple of years ago. And he said, I saw Uncle Vincent. So I said, Uncle Vincent come you, uncle, you know. And then he told me that his father is related to what Mr. Bay, you still got to explain to me, because I don't want to use the C word there, but we call him the C word. You are a C word boy. Oh, Uncle Vincent is you, uncle. And then he explained to me that your mother is Indian.
My mother is Indian. As a matter of fact, my mother and I, the same individual. My mother was a Munsami. So that's the part. You're right. That's an important part that I speak about all the time. Because could you imagine in one I remember one time our vice president decided to tell me when I was because I really I speak whatever I feel is best for the country, and I keep saying it has nothing to do with race. He decided to call me a racist. He did not. I don't know if but the thing is, I think he knows. He had to know, because I worked with him when I was going back home to do my voluntary work. But he decided to say that I was only doing. I only say things because it's an Indian. Because I'm going after the Indians, and I had to really put him in his place to say, hey, what you're telling me that maybe I am as heartless as you are to even hate my mother and to hate my my Indian relatives. But yes, of course if you look at me, my hair, it's getting straighter with age, by the way. But I'm a full-blooded Douglas. And that's one of the things that I even talk about all the time, is that the one encouraging thing, and hopefully I'll be around to see when it happens, is that I remember when I was a little kid and we would be going down the street with my father and mother. I mean, people would be turning heads. And now, unbelievably, the population has 20% who are mixed race, which is a good thing to show that there's, people are putting that racial divide, except for the leaders, except for people that But hopefully the newer generation are going to come along with new leaders to make sure that, I don't know when it's going to happen, Dr. Hines, but I think we have to depend on our younger generation to come, and because it's really deep-seated right now, and it's manifested in such a transparent or bare-faced way that nobody cares. If you're in power, even though it is that measly 51%, if you will, it's being ruled as if it's 100. Well, they got all of the 100% of the votes. Put them in there. It's ultimate power, not caring about that other 50%. So that's the thing that we all have to work towards to make sure, because Guyana, regardless of all the wealth, and we, without question, there's no reason why we cannot be the wealthiest country, and not in money alone. I've always said that we've got all the potential to become the wealthiest country on the planet, and we're so fortunate. God, I mean, it's just like Ghana was a God-sent country. With when you look at all the rich countries in the Middle East, all the Middle East have is oil and sand. They don't have anything. They have no agriculture. The rest of the world is either you got these disastrous things, tornadoes, earthquakes. We have water. The Middle East doesn't have any water. They would do anything to get water. As a matter of fact, one of my tasks when I was a graduate student was to develop the Sarir and Kufra fields, water well fields in Libya, for the Libyan government, but that's more precious than oil to them. We don't have to worry about, we got land of many waters. We don't have any disaster. We've got agriculture, weather all year round. Whereas even in the United States and in those cold countries and Canada and those places, Hell, they could only farm like what, 2 to 3 months a year. So we've got all this luxury. On top of that, we've got gold, diamond, bauxite, minerals, you just need, and then on top of that, we have oil. But it's the management of it, Dr. Hines. It's the management of it that is being abused for personal interest and personal gains that is going to be detrimental to Guyana. It doesn't matter how many monetary wealth we have. Guyana will never achieve its riches without the human part of it. A real one Guyana, not Guyana for one set of people. A real one Guyana. That's the only solution, and that has to be done first before we can get to the next level of calling ourselves rich.
Yeah, and Dr. Adams, I'm so glad that we are having this kind of chat here tonight, because I think it's important to instill in our people a progressive sense of where the world is. We've always been progressive. We had to be. We were tearing down the walls of enslavement, the walls of slavery. We were tearing down the walls of indentureship. We were tearing down the walls of colonialism. And you have to do that because you're progressive. You develop a progressive instinct. You develop a nationalist instinct because you couldn't beat slavery as the individual. Individualism couldn't bring down slavery and indentureship and colonialism. So as Guyanese, as Caribbean people, we have that collectivist instinct that allows us to see and hear things that those who don't have that collective instinct can't see and can't hear. And so someone like yourself who had the opportunity. Now, we could have lost you to cricket. You opened the batting with Roy Fredericks, and you could have gone on to become a cricketer and then a cricket a manager and so on and so forth. Now, cricket would have gained the world of science and so on would have lost. But in typical Guyanese and Caribbean, you got injured and you pivot to something else. So by the time you're at the top of your game, you are bringing the cultural instinct from sport, the scientific instinct from your professionalism, and the sociological instinct from being born in Christiansborg to an Indian mother and an African father in Christiansborg, Linden. You see, and when you put all of that together, you create a particular type of citizen. You know, there are lots of Bostonians on this thing tonight, and I thank God for them every day. You know why? Because they will never allow me to be a big shot. Never did. Oh my God, they will never allow me to be a big, even if I wanted to. You know, So I think that is what people like Jack Dio lacked. They lack mothers and sisters and brothers who said, I am going to hold on to you and make sure you do not become an SOB.
That's right.
All right. I think that's what those fellas don't have. They don't have sisters and brothers and mothers and fathers, right? To guide them. They don't have to say a word to you. They don't have to say, Vincent, do this, do that. You know that you just can't be what those other people. Go ahead.
I gotta give you a story. But you know, and you and I could relate to this. I get my best comfort when I'm in that community. Like even when I was in Guyana at when I was head of the EPA. Almost every weekend I used to be up in Linden. You know where I used to go hang out? At those corner cake shops. And you would never recognize me from anybody else. And so everybody knows me as Vincent or Vince or whatever it is. But that's where I feel comfortable. So when I got to the EPA, I don't know if you know where the EPA building is. It's at Sophia, right at the mouth of Sophia.
Yes.
So behind, so now as soon as I got there, so of course I said, I want to walk through Sophia to see what's in our neighborhood. Oh, that drove the security and the staff and everybody crazy. They said, no. They said, Doc, you can't go. And I said, what do you mean? I said, this is where I was born. This is it. I mean, what are you telling me? I walked. So when I was walking through the street, I had about 10 of them with me. I don't know what they were expecting. So I would stop. There was a shop right behind, not too far up the street. I would stop, and then I would have, like a mobby or whatever it is. And they fell in love with me in that community. So every day now I would go to the corner shop or walk around, go around the back, and everybody got to know me. They were, they were delighted that here is somebody who could come and mix with them. I even encouraged some of them. I said, because they felt that the EPA was outside of their class, I even encouraged some of them to apply, even if it's for to in the cleaning department or something. I encouraged them to apply, and they could not believe it. So the EPA became part of that community when I was there. But the thing is, you cannot get that out of you as long as it's genuine. As long as it's wanting to say, I've got a black friend, or I've got an Indian friend. That's what a lot of people use. Oh, as soon as what do you mean? That's not genuine, So and even in the United States, to just to show you where it doesn't leave you. When, they moved me around. So we had this nuclear weapons complex in Ohio. So the guy, the head guy retired. So they asked me to go and take over. So I arrived there. Now that's in redneck country, Dr. Hines. You know what I'm the red raw. This is in southern Ohio. So I arrived there, and everybody they were worried, but I related. I got it. These were very poor people. And immediately I had an open door policy, whereas even the manager before, you had to make an appointment. Hell, I went, I said, I wanted to meet with the mayor. I wanted to meet with every single leader, the congressman, the senators, the governor, and the local folks. I would just go and invite folks. We would just go and have a good time, just public meeting. And I would go sit in the corner shops with them, and you would not believe how those people fell in love with me, even though I was black. And in that community, nobody could even touch me or even say anything negative about me, because because it was just a temporary position until they found somebody. Do you know they wrote the White House? This is the governor and all they said nobody else, they do not want anybody else to manage that facility permanently unless it's me. Well, I had an assignment. They sent me to another thing in South Carolina, which is, where I had to go anyway. And they said they were not going to stop until I come back. And that's what happened. After 2 years, they begged for after Obama, when the new president came in, they said, here, right now we want him this is the time we want. And I went back there. So, but the point I'm making, it has nothing to do about white and black. It gets down to human beings.
Yeah.
It's about a lot of times it's your economic situation. And here I am going into redneck area. And for the audience who don't know what redneck is, they don't like see people with our color. But for them to welcome me with open arms in a community, and it's because of how I relate to them, because they said, you're one of us. That was what they used to say. I can't believe, you are one of us. So again, that's what's bred in you, and that is more important than anything else. All the degrees and everything, it's about how how you apply those degrees to making people's lives better. It's not about having a degree and feeling highfalutin and people calling you doctor and all that kind of stuff. It's how do you use that degree and degrees and experience to make people's lives better. And the most important part of it is to relate to people socially and to have empathy for their economic situation and well-being.
and well-being. Dr. Vincent here tonight with us, and we're talking our politics, but we are talking politics through the prism of a poor boy from Christianburg rising to the top of his game, but having to engage the very poverty that he came out of, and using his experience, his skills to really deal with that society from which he come. Dr. Adams, you've been fighting this battle, what I call a nationalist battle, for oil, and I want to say there is no shame in nationalism, and of course there are different kinds of nationalisms. All right.
Yep.
And I rather suspect that when you are fighting that fight on the front of oil and gas, the nationalism that you're talking about is a nationalism that's grounded in, in the notion of equality and equitability. Here is this product that has the potential to bring wealth, potential and real reality, to bring wealth to us. Do we treat with it in an old colonial way? Huh? The colonial way of injustice and inequality? Or do we treat with it from a nationalist perspective that is anti-colonial in nature, that says, here we are at this storefront, because that's where we are. This oil is there, and we are at this storefront. And how are we going to distribute? You're talking about distribution between company and nation. You're talking about distribution within nation. And so as you fight that fight, tell us, what is it you are fighting for in real terms? I just laid out the philosophy. The philosophy of pushing back against a kind of colonial way of engaging wealth, and talking about a new nationalist way of gaining wealth. Not a nationalism that is talking about national superiority, but to talk about justice and equality. Tell us in practical terms what your fight has been these last couple of years.
Well, again, let me give you a little background or perspective there before, like I said, I was at the highest level of the U.S. government. As a matter of fact, we were the equivalent of the generals in the military. We were the civilian equivalent of the generals in the military. So they trained us. We used to have to go to, after the world economic crisis in 2008, we were required, the executives in the Department of Energy, we were required to go to MIT on a special program and it wasn't about science and engineering, because MIT has one of the best business schools and Sloan Business School. So we had to go there every 6 months for like 2 weeks and spend time with all of the executives, the Exxon executives and the Chevrons and all of the executives in the big companies, the big American companies. We go there and hang out and have, just to ask them what attracts them, what make them tick in terms of investments, etc. So the course, and it was about, what it was about? It was entitled, How Do We Make America and Keep America Competitive and on Top of the World? So here, even though I was an engineer, it was all about how do we keep America competitive. So we studied all of the countries across the world. So that was what the program was. But we did it in a combination with these folks. One of the things, and then of course I manage all of these chairmen, the Rutledges and all these guys who come to Guyana and run our country and drive fear in our politicians. They were the ones who had to kowtow to us when we say jump, they say how high. They never question anything when we tell them to do it. As a matter of fact, we, in every single contract we had, in that contract to say we could terminate their contract for convenience at any time. As a matter of fact, I had to do that at least once. We are terminating a big major company's contract for convenience. So one of the things that I used to hear, Dr. Hines, which is what really drove me, especially when I came back to Guyana. You know, you would go there and sit down with some of these guys drinking a beer and stuff. And a lot of them, because like the Exxons, they're spread out across the world. We had assignments all over the world. And these guys, while we'll be drinking, these guys would start talking about how in Africa or Caribbean, how people are so stupid and what they're getting away with. And that, I'm telling you, that used to register so deep in me. Mm-hmm. Because they used to come and basically what they're saying, I cannot believe, you would not believe what we're getting what we're getting away with. And everybody were just a bunch of dumb fools in these countries that they go in. So when I decided that's what drove me in the first place to wanting to come back, and especially when oil was discovered. So when I came back there, that is how I put Exxon. That's another session. But that was the reason why Exxon didn't have a choice. I told them, if you do not go along, for example, with the full liability protection for a spill, you're gonna produce a barrel of oil, not one drop of oil as long as I'm there. They started threatening, well, that's not within the contract. I said, I don't want to hear anything about a contract. You will not produce one drop of oil unless this happens. And so that's how they went along with it. But of course, as soon as the government changed, they kicked me out, and they tried to throw that away by of course they went to court and they got slammed heavily by Judge Kissoon. Hopefully it's gonna stay that way with but the point is, they take advantage of us. One of the things that happened to Dr. Hines, and getting back to the colonial mentality, mm-hmm. based upon what I just told you there, I was probably, I don't know if I was the only person, but in 2015 when oil was discovered, I was asked to review the 1999 contract to see what needs to be changed for us to sign that, this new contract. I submitted a 12-page document. And you know what was told to me by the then government? That I am too tough on Exxon and I will drive them out of the country. And I did it because of my knowledge, which I knew. I said, here, I'll bet my life. They ain't going no place. This here is their lifeline to get out of their financial crisis to begin with. And furthermore, especially what's projected as what's the recoverable reserves here, they ain't go of high quality crude. But that was what was thrown back at me. And every single issue that is being raised right now, Dr. Hines, it was raised in that 12-page document that I wrote. Okay? And so those are the kind, so from both perspectives, from the investors, the foreign investors, they come in, they still view us as subservient. So they come in and they believe that we're a pack of fools, so we accept anything. And on the other side, we ourselves still view them as probably our colonial masters. Whatever they say, the white man comes in and whatever they say is gospel. And folks like me now, a normal Vincent, comes in, he just hang out in the corner and these places. Doesn't mean anything. I'm just still an old, even though these same people that they're talking about even had to report to me, and I even thought, well, not specifically these folks, but people of their in their caliber and kind. So we've got it from both sides. We've got the colonial mentality from our these folks who come in and want to invest. They believe that we're a pack of fools. I'm telling you, firsthand, I used to be hearing these things. And then on the other side, in my personal, like I told you before, I was told that I'm going to drive Exxon out to the country. And in the meantime, all I was trained in the United States. Hell, I grew up professionally in the biggest, capitalist country. As a matter of fact, as one of the leaders, like I said, who runs the operations of the U.S. government, we were trained to produce as much as possible to be competitive in the world, but you had to do it following the rule of law. You had to do it following and doing with all of the checks and balances, and you had to be there. You cannot even think about being corrupt. I could not even accept a sweet drink from a contractor. We had these inspector general's office that was independent of the agency basically, and they were open 24/7 where anonymous calls can come in, and if you're caught taking anything from a contractor, you're going to be held accountable. But it's a free for all in Guyana. So that's the culture that I grew up in, and that was the reason why I really wanted to bring all of that experience back together and to change the mentality. And at EP, I only spent 20 months there, Doctor. And trust me, it was like a sea change at the EPA. With these things that I'm telling you, I inculcated the work culture and the corrupt behaviors and everything. I stopped it and cut it out. And so we can do it. It's just a matter of. And the one thing I remember when I was starting the EPA, the board members told me, they said, well, Dr. Adams, you're coming in here with these idealistic kind of thing, but this is a different country. I said, people are people, human beings are, and I'm glad that most of the PPA were young people. Dr. Hines, within a few months, that entire culture changed. People used to be coming in at 9, 10 in the morning and leaving, and you see to get out to the parking lot, they're tripping over each other at 3 o'clock. But all of that changed. Because you hold people accountable, but of course you empower them. You make them understand that they're important. I doubled some people's salaries. You see within a few months, people were there at nights. Hell, they're leaving after me at 7 o'clock because they're now taking ownership.
Yeah.
And so we brought back respectability. I must give you this story. So I normally left the office at about 7, 8, 9 at night, especially early. So one night I heard a knock on the door, and a young man came in. He said, Doc, I know that you don't know me, but I'm one of the drivers. So I said, okay, have a seat, let's chat. He said, well, I've got to give you this last story. He said normally he drives the officers out to the field. He said normally, he would come in and then they would leave at about 10. They would go hang out. They would go do a little thing for an hour or so. And then his job was to find a shop where they can go have a beer and eat and stuff like that, to hustle back into the office by 3 o'clock to go home. So he said today, they left at 8 o'clock right on time, and he couldn't understand. So at 12 o'clock, now he's looking for this shop to get his beer. And they told him, they said, nah, by this, we got a new sheriff in town. We better walk until 8 tonight.
Yes.
But so people could change, but it's leadership, Dr. Hines. It is leadership. And you can't tell, even bringing the races together, it's about leadership. But there's no interest, if you've got other interest, in only one set of people to make them rich, and you don't care about the 50%, and now you've got the money, because this is what's playing out here, Dr. Hines. You've got the money, so you believe that the money is going to keep you there regardless of what. You can hand out people, they're so glad to get, I'm going to get their votes by just buying their votes, and I don't care. So it's not about caring for the people anymore. Like I said, feeding somebody is being berated. Okay, so it's about leadership, Dr. Hines. And that's how I was trained. It's all about leadership, and leadership was held accountable. So that's
Yeah, Dr. Adams. Before we go, and with your permission, we're going to come back next week.
Sure.
To continue this discussion, because we've just scratched the surface. But I want your take on the recent auction of the 14 oil blocks. And we noticed the vice president is trying to put a spin on it. I understand there's 8 bids, and they were expecting far more than that. What happened there from your standpoint?
Well, first of all, I've said from day one, this was the biggest distraction. You remember this was the same vice president that views down in Parliament, say that it was the worst contract we've sold out, the country sold out this patrimony. And every discovery, mark these words, he said every discovery, people should be sad about it. I mean, it is on record. So, and as soon as I get in, I'm renegotiating, I'm going to do all this thing. Of course, we know what happened. So when of course, the Glenn Lalls and everybody every day renegotiate. So this here was a scheme to first of all put the 14 blocks on sale. And I warned when this thing came out, I told the media and my opposition colleagues, I said, here, we cannot fall into this trap. This guy wants to distract from the Stabroek block that he's being pressured to renegotiate with these 14 oil blocks, with this new dispensation and these new rules. And that's exactly, I mean, besides Glenn Lalls, nobody else is talking about renegotiation. All the focus is on the 14 block. So if you fast forward to the 14 block, though, and you're right, now we've got with the 10%. Now there are a couple of things that happened there. First of all, there were I think 8 blocks people bid on, and I think there were 6 companies. And one of the things that I said in these bids, there are not only are they not really any local companies, really, there are no black persons, and again, it has nothing to do with race, but there are no, which is exactly, especially when you raise the ante now, the Stabroek block was basically a giveaway. But now you raise the ante for new investors, and now you're making it more difficult for an industry that has advanced establishing itself, where it becomes more difficult for locals to even get involved. Yeah. So you're even making it worse. And then the other thing is, what's interesting, Exxon is bidding on one of those blocks, which means even at this high, the higher royalty and the more challenging and everything else, they still see an opportunity for profit, which is what I said. If you had put 50% royalty, I guarantee you, Dr. Hines, 50, they would have still bid in it. So here we've got 2%, and they're getting away with it and making all these excuses. But 10%, they're willingly jumping to bid in it. And the other thing is, by the way, I don't know if you play the stocks and stuff like that, but put your money wherever you see Exxon is bidding, because Exxon has all of they know where that oil is in those 14 blocks. So you watch where Exxon is going. They've got the data. They're not going to go bid on a block. They've got the seismic data and all the details based on all the wells that they've drilled. They're the ones with all of the knowledge in those blocks. So if you invest in the ones that Exxon is bidding. So this whole thing it started out as a big sham to distract, but nevertheless, it also, the most important thing is that it has priced out local folks completely, which should never be the intent. It should be the opposite.
They're producing much more in terms of barrels than they're supposed to produce.
Yes.
And theoretically, that is supposed to bring more revenues to us.
No, well, to start with, Doctor, I remember I told you to follow the rule of law.
Yes.
That's a dangerous thing, because the environmental impact assessment, which is the Bible of the industry, you never exceed that. That's where you do all the studies. And these things can take over 2 years and those type of things. And what that defines, the most important aspect of the EIA is to define what the safety limit is. The environment, the EIA says specifically, and it was published. The page was published here just a few days ago by the Kaieteur News. It says the exact word, the safe operating limit for Liza 1 is 120,000 barrels per day. Do you know what the Liza 1 is operating at? 155,000 barrels per day. Meaning they've exceeded the safe operating limit by about 30%. And on top of that, on the other side, they are refusing, which, by the way, that makes it dangerous to cause an oil spill, because stuff, you can rupture the pipe, you can rupture on the pressures and everything else. That is why you set that limit. But on top of that, on the backside, even though you're enhancing the opportunity for an oil spill, you do not want to cover it. If you get an oil spill, you're refusing to go along with the unlimited liability coverage that I put into the permit, that not only they're fighting. I mean, how could the government be going along appealing that decision along with Exxon against its own people and against its own law? It's mind-boggling, Dr. Hines. It's really mind-boggling. And this has nothing to do with politics. This is not about politics. Because the whole point is, when I was there, they had agreed to it completely. And as soon as I left, the government and that was one thing about Granger and his government. He never interfered in anything that we did at the EPA. And the EPA did everything that we told them that they had to do. And when after I left, all of that went to naught, and it became lawlessness. With the government support.
Dr. Vincent Adams here on a Friday evening, really turning it on. We're going to bring back Dr. Vincent next Friday. Friday is going to be his day for the foreseen period, because we're going to be tracking. You know what we do on this program? We're going to be tracking with Dr. Vincent. So he doesn't come here 6 months later and tell us what happened 6 months ago, because we are moving into a critical period. Elections are coming. They're going to try to manipulate the industry. They're under pressure from the Americas on the question of governance. So we are going to be monitoring what's happening in the oil and gas industry against the backdrop of the governance challenges that this government is engaging. And if you follow the Kaito news, where Dr. Adams appears very often, he's constantly having to correct the lies of the PPP. And they lie a lot. Dr. Vincent, why? Why they lie so much about gas, oil and gas?
To me, and like I said, I'm not as politicians, as savvy politicians as most people, but you don't have to be. You don't have to be to see why. It's what they always used to tell us when I worked for the U.S. government, Dr. Hines. So this here's my short answer: follow the money. Follow the money. Okay? And I will say no more. Follow the money. That's what it means. Follow the money. Look at Dr. Hines. Look at who. Look at, first of all, who are the ones who are cleaning up on these contracts, right? Look at who've got all the shore bases. Look at Jetty, for example, across the river.
Yes.
Where you're tearing down these poor people home because you want to build a shore base. You're building an island right in the mouth of the Demerara River, disrupting all the ecological systems and everything, tearing down all the mangroves. It doesn't matter. You're gonna put some. Look at the gas plant in the middle of the most developed area in the country, where 90%, probably going to be more than that, of the commerce comes through. Traffic in the water, everything is congested in them. If something happens, and by the way, their response plan, there's no particular response plan to respond to a spill, which is the CDC, the Civil Defense Commission, who is responsible for putting that together. I was at EPA, Dr. Hans. I know what a CDC, what a plan, a response plan looked like. And this thing was not even come close. I refused to sign it on behalf of the EPA. It was that bad. And it was not only me, Dr. Hines. This guy Gulsaran, the the general
Yes, the Auditor
yes,
General.
the what?
Anand Gulsuran, who used to be the I think he worked in the Auditor General's office.
The Auditor General said the same thing when they looked at that plan. I think that was after I left. So we do not have, first of all, we do not have, they're not following the rules in terms of putting mitigative actions in place to prevent the spill. They're enhancing it by exceeding the safe operating limit defined in the EIA. And on the backside now, they do not have a proper spill response plan, nor liability coverage to cover a spill if it exists. But they're going ahead. They're building shore bases. They're building. Everybody is getting into the action, or one set of people are getting into the action. So to get back to your question, like I said, it's very simple. Follow the money. So follow the money and see where and to whom the money is going. That's the answer to your question.
That's the answer to the question, Dr. Vincent Adams. Thank you so much for coming on to Politics 101 tonight. And we're going to work to get you back here next week so that we continue this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Hines, and thanks to your audience for listening. Appreciate it.
And thank you, our audience, for staying with us. As usual, our objective on this program is to expand the conversation and to ensure that the conversation feeds in to a narrative that has as its outcome a just and equitable Guyana. That's all we're talking about here, a just and equitable Guyana. We're at this critical juncture in our history, where we have the opportunity to correct a lot of wrongs. But if we are not vigilant, this opportunity will slip away and it will compound the wrongs. We will then be talking about the legacies of slavery and indentureship and colonialism, and then the legacies of the petro state, the bad legacy. And we don't want the bad legacy, we want the good legacy. Yes, there is opportunity for development. There's also the opportunity to protect our country, at all levels. We have a government where stick brocades, old people say so, stick brocades, but we have to keep on top of it and continue to advocate, continue to protect and defend what we have, and continue to expose. In the process of exposing, we are putting on the table something new. And we are saying that people like Vincent Adams, who have amassed tremendous global experience, are assets to us. I always say that small countries, we don't have leverage when we sit across the table with Exxon. But if you have somebody who worked with the likes of Exxon before, sitting across the table from them, we have not leverage, but we have historical memory. We have people who know what's coming before they fire it off. And that's always a plus for us. All right. Thank you all again. It's Friday. Relax a little bit for the weekend, and I'm going to see you all on Monday. Professor Thomas is going to take up the coverage on these issues of economics, these issues of oil and gas. We have to come at it from all perspectives. Glenal comes at it from his perspective. We come at it from another perspective. The distributive aspect, the contract aspect, the protection of our environmental aspect, they're all critical. It's not one or the other. It's all of them. All of them. Having a 65% growth rate is important. Something to brag about. It has consequences. It has consequences. You're asking, Dr. Vincent said, follow the money. Where the money is going. Where the money is going. When I tell my students I'm from Guyana, you are from the fastest growing economy in the world. What comes with that? The IMF and the World Bank are now saying that we are in the top bracket. There's certain categories of loans we cannot access, which means the takings we are getting from oil will have to pick up that slack. And that is why it is important that we keep on top of these people. There's no separation here. No separation of the environment from governance. No separation of governance from the economics. No separation of the economics from the culture. They're all connected. And the president is in the United States of America trying to defend the record of its government because the gaze of the world is on our country. And we have been doing some work in sensitizing the world to the real Guyana. This 60-something% growth rate is not happening in a place with no history, a place with no culture, a place with no politics. It is happening in a real place with a real history. And all the burdens that we have brought with us over the last 3 decades or so, we are placing those burdens on the oil and gas industry. And we have to prevent the oil and gas industry from becoming victim of what bauxite became. Bauxite became the victim of a nepotism, bad governance. Sugar. Look at how they're using sugar. We have an opportunity now to make sugar work for us. But they're prepared to kick sugar down the road as a political football. Because they have oil and gas, they're taking that windfall and spending it on their pet political project. Because sugar for them is not about sugar workers. When sugar workers come up against them, they give the signal to the police, beat them and strip them, even though those sugar workers vote for them. Callous people. Callous people. Those sugar workers voted for them. But I said to my East Indian brethren, when the police was beating and stripping black people, you all remain silent because it's your party. And now they're stripping your own people. You are forced to remain silent. It's a terrible state of affairs, but we're going to change it. Because human beings are not robots. We come from places. We come from Christianburg. We come from Port Morant. We come from Boston. We come from Den Amstel. We come from Tiger Bay. We come from places. We are human beings with souls. We make mistakes. We have biases. Our politics sometimes blind us from seeing objective reality. But at the end of the day, if we are human beings, we are able to make judgments as human beings. Nobody's talking about those sugar workers that were stripped under their own government. All those who are prattling about democracy. Democracy also is about whether human beings have the right to their dignity. You can't tell me about a democratic government under which the police, in order to take mugshots of people, have to strip them. But they were able to do that because they were stripping other people, and we said nothing. When they stripped Africans, we said nothing. When they violated Amerindians, we said nothing. And now they're stripping us. There's nobody to say anything for us. Pay attention, my brethren and sisters. When I fight for Africans, I'm not just fighting for Africans, I'm fighting for the dignity of all Guyanese. All Guyanese. I may be accentuating the African narrative of suffering, but I'm experienced enough to know that that narrative is replicated in other ethnic communities. Where are the Indianists? Where is Ravidev? Where is Vishnu Bishram? Where is Betaram Ramarak? Where are the Indianists to speak out about these Indians? Indian sugar workers who were stripped because they asked for severance. I don't know whether they're right or wrong from a trade union perspective and all of that. I'm not an expert. But I'm saying they're citizens that are making demands on the state. Don't be opportunistic. I hear them talking about the Sugar Welfare Fund and that Burnham spent it on the National Cultural Center. And they're asking the successor government, this government, to recompense Indians for what the Burnham government did. Fine. It's not an issue that I know much about. And if the money was for Indian people, Burnham was wrong to spend the money unilaterally on other things. And if people today are making an argument that the present state must recompense Indians, fine. But when David Hinds, say that this state, this successor state, must pay reparations to Black people, you all say I'm a racist. Same logic. Same logic. And that is the nastiness that some people are engaged in. If the successor state can give compensation for the Indian Immigration Fund money, the successor state can give compensation for African loss of money for 200 and odd years when they were not paid. It is that sickness that has our country where it is. Where are the Indian voices against the Indian sugar workers who were beaten by police and stripped? Where are they? I want Indians to see what's happening. So when we on the African side are fighting against beating and stripping by the police, and you all don't stand up and fight with us, they're coming for you all tomorrow. And I'm not going to sit there and say, I'm glad they come for you all, because I'm not glad. I'm not glad. Whether you're Indian, African, or Americans, or white, or whatever, you're human beings. And you're entitled to your dignity. They tell me about fighting for Black people rights. I am fighting for Black people rights, but I'm fighting to help to develop a conscious, progressive Black community, not a reactionary Black community. I'm not interested in reactionary Blackness. I'm interested in a Black community that is conscious of its civic responsibility, its cultural responsibility, that is progressive, not reactionary. And I think if we create a progressive Black perspective, a progressive Black approach to politics, that it can have a domino effect. Because ultimately, it's a progressive position that we want. When Vincent Adams and others are fighting on the environmental front, I use the word nationalist, and I use it in a progressive sense. These are not the days when the third world had no exports. We now have exports. We now have exports. So we come in peace here tonight. We're going to go in peace, and we're going to come back in peace to continue this struggle. Irfan Ali just discovered that handouts are bad. Handouts are bad. They're now saying their own Indian supporters are greedy. That's what they're saying about the sugar workers. They're greedy. Their own people. It just shows you their perspective on the world. Now he goes to BBC and say handouts are bad. Yet it's the very handouts he was using in the Black community to get votes. When it's handouts to their friends, their rich friends. As Professor Thomas reminded me today, it's a leg up, not handout. But when they give something to poor people, they call it handouts. That is why we got to be conscious. Because they're not giving us because they like us. They're giving it to us as political expediency. And then when they go before white people, they tell white people, look, we know that that thing that we're doing, giving them handouts, don't work. They're assuming that we're not hearing them. That's why I don't tell you all black people go take the people money and vote against them. You all notice I don't do it because I don't think that's a progressive approach. I think the progressive approach is to demand that the government distribute the resources equitably. Not give you $40,000 because you go and put on a red jersey, and the person who don't put on a red jersey don't get nothing. That is not equitable. And I will never encourage black people or any people to embrace that notion. If you all want to do that, you know. But I am not encouraging it as a praxis. Because they know it's bad. After doing it, he went to the BBC people and tell them it's bad. That crook, hypocrite, know that what he's doing at home in throwing out a little 40,000 and 2 boxes of cook-up, he knows it's wrong. And then goes to BBC, says it's wrong, hoping that you all don't hear it. That is why they're never going to stop hearing from us. Because we got their number. We know what they're up to. With God's grace and with your all support, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it again. We did it in 2015. And we're going to do it again. Hopefully this time, all of our leaders are much more adept, much more conscious of what they're dealing with. So that this time, having done it, we don't throw it away. As we did to some extent in 2020. Because these guys are crooks. You hand out money to people left, right, and center, and then go and tell the white man this thing don't work. Good night. I love you all tremendously. Without you all, there is no me. I come from the nigger yard of yesterday, leaping from the oppressor's hate and for the scorn of myself. I turn to the world of tomorrow with my strength, your strength. Good night.